Hey, Darth, can you check this
Mm.
real quick? So you were asking Stephen what's a
Well,
fact that is independent from God? What about this fact? Reality is the case.
well, that's a response that's very common among unbelievers. Okay, when you invoke reality, is reality a concrete one or an abstract one?
Not sure.
Okay, so reality. When you talk about reality, are you referring to the set of all real discrete things, or do you mean that reality is that in any unique or discrete state of affairs or particular that individual state is real?
What I mean by reality is all the set of all things that are the case.
Okay, well, here's the problem. You are unifying all the discrete particulars abstractly, not concretely. So an abstraction doesn't stand in causal relations, where something that is concrete can act in causal relations. So for example, what if I had a whole bunch of, suppose I had, for the sake of discussion, 10,000 little wood chips, right? And all of these wood chips are floating in space. But you refer to every wood chip one, two, three, all the way up to 10,000. You refer to it by a single term. Okay. Well, the oneness of the many is abstract, it's not concrete. Okay. Now, to give you a kind of poor analogy, and I realize it's poor, imagine that all of the wood chips are all glued together. Okay. They're unified by something concrete rather than abstract. Okay. And so now the glue and the wood chips are now a discrete entity that you can refer to concretely as a one, even though individual parts could be separated. So you
Sure.
see,
So
feeling
it seems like what you're saying is
feeling to
there's a
re,
distinction, right, between the abstract and the concrete, and you're asking, does this set of all things that are the case contain which one? Because it cannot contain both. Is that what you're trying to say? That you can't have concrete and
always
abstract.
trying to understand my critique, you must always keep in mind that what we're talking about is going to be juxtaposed conceptually with the Christian worldview. So in the Christian worldview, we have God and then we have creation. Creation consists not of one concrete thing, but of a plurality of concrete things, right? And that whatever unity is there, they are imposed by God, which is a concrete thing that unifies the things at various levels. Okay? Right? It is the power of God that unifies them. It is not God, it is not simply that when I say the mind of God is unifying it, I'm talking about the mind of God is actually imposing the unity in an ontological state. It is not merely that the mind of God abstractly unifies the particulars. Now, when one rejects God as creator, then what is it at an fundamental metaphysical ontological level that imposes and sustains that the unity is real versus that the unity is conceptual or abstract? You see, this is why Van Til referred to God using certain philosophical terms that he borrowed from idealism. He referred to God as the concrete universal. In other words, the plurality of things are unified by the mind and the power of God unifying them. They're not just unified abstractly. Okay.
So
So,
what you're trying to say is that when you say the set of all things that are the case is more is an error. It's more of God dictates the set of all concrete things that He's created.
and it is God who, by the power of his will, imposes what levels of unity, connectiveness, and correlativeness there is to the particulars.
Right. So we're on the same page, right?
Right. But you see,
Now, question.
the
Um.
unbeliever, when they think that they have a coherent worldview, when they leave God out, when they either invoke or think that God is not necessary, and so what they're doing, whether they realize it or not, is they're saying God as the creator, as the supreme being, the concrete unifier is not necessary. Okay. So if there's unity, connectiveness, and correlativeness between all the particulars in the set of all real things, what makes the unity real as opposed to it's imaginary? Other than somebody just saying, well, it just is. Let me give you an illustration. If you go onto Google or Bing and type in female doppelgangers, if you scroll down slightly, you're going to see two young women who look like identical twins, but they don't have one or two parents in common. They're come from completely different families. Somebody could come along and look at their presentation and conclude that because of its presenting appearance, that they are unified, that they are either siblings, that they're either fraternal twins, or they're identical twins. But such unity doesn't actually exist. The person thinking that they're identical or fraternal twins is abstractly imposing that on them, thinking that the unity is real when it is not. Do you understand the illustration?
Yeah.
Now, this can apply on a grand scale. Either the unity at various levels, when we think about our world, the various levels or categories of unity, either they're real or they're not real. Just because we believe they're real, that itself does not institute and secure the realness of the unity. So if the unity among all the particulars is real, and one refuses to acknowledge God and be grateful to him as creator, who is the grand unifier, then what makes the unity real? This is why the Bible says they turn from what God has revealed about himself in creation, and their foolish hearts were darkened. They turned then to worship the creation. So when an unbeliever, rather than acknowledging that God is by virtue that he has revealed himself in creation and through human history, refuses to acknowledge God, and they say reality, that is the same thing as worshiping the creation. It
So
is like,
in other words, when we say or anybody says reality is the case, all the things that are the case, God wouldn't fit in there in that subset, because if God fit in that subset, then there would be multiple, and it
no,
would conflict with God's power and
God,
definition.
if God is within what we call reality, then reality itself is an abstraction. Okay?
That seems
By
to be
abstraction,
contingent.
okay? So if God could not be concretely within reality as opposed to being abstractly within there, because then God would no longer be God.
Exactly. So there would be a conflict if God is
And
part of the
so
set of all things
when,
that are the case.
so when we say to somebody, "Oh, you don't want to acknowledge that God is the creator," then we say, "Oh, okay, then what is it that institutes and secures what is, can be, and cannot be?" And because they don't know what to say, even the PhDs, I have asked PhDs this question, right? PhD atheists.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
What is it that institutes and secures every instance of what is, can be, and cannot be?
That would be God.
Right, but when they refuse to acknowledge God, the Bible says this: they are without excuse. Ever since the beginning of the creation of the world, God's eternal powers have been clearly seen so that men are without an excuse. The word excuse there in the Greek means without a legal defense, without a rational justification, without evidentiary support. It says their foolish hearts were darkened and they turned and worshiped the creation. Well, what is the creation? That's what they call reality. It's not God. Reality is what determines everything.
I think
So
this
there,
is a good conversation because it highlights the importance of God's sovereignty. That God has to be God has to be the primal, has to be the beginning. You can't put reality first. It has to be God first, and then from all things follow. Does that
do
make
you know,
sense?
a number of years
Wait,
ago,
are we on the same page?
yeah, a number of years ago, when I was discussing the issue of God vis-a-vis reality, I said in a light conversation, well, God is not, quote, in reality, because God is not derivative and dependent upon anything. Okay? God is in reality in an abstract sense, where if we abstract the set of all real things, but I was trying to make the point that God is that he is unconditionally non-dependent. God is not in anything concretely. Okay?
Right.
And everything that exists that is not God is derivative and depends upon the mind and the power and the purpose of God. But you see, there were sophist atheists who purposely were misconstruing my words to contradict my belief in God by saying, well, God's not in reality. God doesn't exist. I mean, it's
Mhm.
asinine. So
The
when they
contingency argument makes the case for that.
Yeah. So when we say, do you accept that Jesus Christ has revealed himself as the second person of the Trinity? He is the creator of all things along with the Father and the Spirit, and that he upholds all things by the power of his will. When you reject that, good. When you reject a composite worldview, which the Christian worldview is, then when you start talking about your world with the pretense that it's meaningful, intelligible, interpretable, and that it involves variety, diversity, and unity, I want to know what imposes that. If it is not the mind and the purpose and the sovereignty of God, what is it? Well, they have nothing identifiable or defensible, and they know they don't. But since they don't want to admit that they don't have anything. So what do? They go to an ad hoc maneuver. The dog ate my homework, and they say reality.
I have a
Okay.
quick
Like
question
a T
for
gem.
you that I was trying to bring up before. That whenever you were saying, I can't remember your exact words. You were saying that um, connecting between non-particular things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Why is there any unity at various levels? What imposes that?
Would How would the law of identity play into that?
Um,
Since that wouldn't
the,
have
the law of
to
identity,
connect between two things.
the law of identity would just simply be something is what it is.
Right.
Okay. But you see, usually when we refer to that, we're talking about something in a time index. But you see, but then once that concept spans a time index from T1 to T2 to T4, whatever, okay, then we're talking about identity over time.
Right.
Okay. And so when we were talking before about Stephen, and he was saying that his consciousness is what unifies the mental states at T1 to T5, right? His consciousness there is not an explanation of what unifies each of those mental states. And if he says, well, it's my brain, okay, well, what unifies that?
Darth?
Uh-oh, trouble just rolled in.
Hey,
Go
I'm
ahead.
back there, Darth. I was actually going to hop off,
No.
but I did like our conversation. I'm going to think some more about your question about what is, can be, and cannot be, and what sustains those
Right.
potentials.
And let the record show you and I did not agree
Please.
on certain things, and yet Darth Dawkins didn't fly off the handle. Okay? Because you conducted yourself like an adult.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, Darth. I hope you have a good night, man.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Otangelo.
Yes,
Here,
Darth, I
I've
came
got to run
in
too.
just when I saw your picture, precisely wanting to ask you about what you were just talking about. And I want that you try to clarify that, because I have actually difficulties to understand that concept which you always bring up in regards of the one and the many.
Okay, what are you having difficulty with?
Well, when you talk about that, then I mean, you know that I am an evidentialist. So I think when you are talking, when atheists say, well, all there is, it is reality, then you ask, well,
That,
what is it that,
that's
yeah,
almost a non-informative, trivial statement.
right.
That,
And I see you always answering with that group math, the one and the many, what composes reality and so forth, right?
yeah.
And I have difficulty to follow that rationale.
Okay, I'm going to send you a link here. Okay, just give me a second.
Yeah, same here. Matt Yester told me what book to get. It's something that advances Van Til and Bonson. It's on Amazon. I forgot the book title, but yeah, I'm
Here,
also gonna pick it up.
I'm going to send you a link, Otangelo.
Can you
Okay.
send me one too, Darth, so I can look at it too?
Okay. Otangelo, Aiden, I want you to go to that link and go to the Van Til folder. In the Van Til folder, there is a book called The One and the Many by Rousas Rushnuni. Okay?
Okay.
This is and I'll be perfectly frank with you, I have not finished the book yet, right? But I have talked with people who have in it, and it's probably one of the best examples of explaining what the philosophical, theological issue is of the one and the many. Okay?
Right, but since you frequently bring that up in discussions with atheists, um, can you formulate or say it maybe a little bit different in order that I don't have difficulty to understand the concept?
Conceptualize everything. Okay? What is the ultimate nature of everything? Is it in its oneness or unity? Or is it's the diversity what is fundamental and ultimate?
Right. That is already a problem which I have with that statement. So put yourself into the head of an atheist. He can imagine, for example, that somehow there were virtual particles. There was that unified force or energy at the beginning of the universe, and it split into the four fundamental forces. So that is a trajectory which theoretically is possible, because, I
No,
mean, there is
no, no.
nothing that.
Angelo, he's already laying out unity among diversity, but there's nothing identifiable that makes the unity real.
So what hinders a singularity or a unified force to split into four forces?
I'm looking forward to the time when we can post images, okay? But if you go onto Google and you go into images and type female doppelgangers and you scroll down slightly, you're going to see two young women who have gained notoriety in that they appear to be identical twins, that they share a common property, okay? But what
Okay.
we find out is they don't have that common property, that the unity that appears to be there is not real. Okay? Now, this is an
Okay.
doesn't prove what I'm saying. I'm trying to give an example where there is believed to be or perceived unity among the diversity of these two individuals. They appear to be either identical twins or siblings who look the same. Now, when an unbeliever starts talking about virtual particles, he's already invoking unity among diversity, that there are two or more things that share common properties and attributes. What imposes that unity? Okay?
No, not okay, Dart. I have a difficulty to follow you on this.
Okay, let me ask you this question. What makes identical twins? What unifies them?
I have difficulty to understand that question.
Okay, how are there identical twins? What do they have in common?
Well, they came from the same egg, right?
Right. Or for that matter, even
The
if they
same
were,
zygote.
okay, they have something that concretely unifies them. That
That is the zygote, right? Which splits into the two twins.
unification is from something concrete, not an abstract unification.
Okay.
Okay, now suppose these two doppelgangers went to court and one of them was arrested for drunk driving. And the judge says, "How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor." And she says, "Well, I have you, here on videotape, and you say, 'Your
Can I
Honor.'"
can I stop you? Can I stop you, Dart? Just to what you are saying basically, that the diversity has to come from a unified thing. Is that correct?
What concretely unifies any particulars that you give the same label to? Is the unification concrete or abstract?
So what you are saying is that basically everything has to start from one single starting point. Is that correct?
Thing is, inevitably, when we say things, we're invoking unity among diversity. So if the unity is real, right? If there is a state of affairs or a particular that is sharing in terms of its properties and attributes unity with other things, what actually institutes and secures the unity, as opposed to that the unity is imaginary?
Yeah, I think I am starting to get where you're going with this. What you are saying is that the state of affairs of diversity hasn't been always that state of affairs of diversity. Is that correct?
There's no unity to speak of beyond their imagination, because there's nothing identifiable and defensible that institutes and secures the realness of unity among diversity.
Okay, I have again difficulties to follow you here. But
Do you have
can you agree on what I just said? That if there is diversity, it
oh,
has to come from unity. Is that correct?
Tangelo, do you have any brothers or sisters?
No.
Okay. If somebody has brothers or sisters, what makes this sisterhood or brotherhood real? Is it imaginary, or is there something concrete within history, right, and in the present that imposes the actual unity among diversity?
Yeah, they are diverse, but they come from the same father and mother, right?
Suppose
So
I
they share the same starting point, let's say, correct?
suppose I went around, because you and I have striking intelligence and good looks, although you're a bit better looking than I am. Suppose I went around and I said that we are actual physical brothers and siblings. Would that be true?
No,
Okay. So it would be fiction if I said we are brothers.
correct.
We are not unified concretely by having a common parent or parents.
Right.
So if I referred to our as brothers, it would either not be true, or it would be symbolic. Now,
Okay.
an unbeliever invokes terms such as particles or virtual particles, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is imposing unity among the diversity of things, that they have the.
Again, let me bring that objection again, Dart. What basically the theory is saying is that there was a unified force at the singularity at the beginning of the universe, and it split into the four fundamental forces. All right. So what they are positing is that there was at the beginning that unified singular force. They say, well, we don't know where it came from, but it is that force which instantiated the Big Bang and the fundamental forces and matter and everything else.
Well, they have a vivid imagination, don't they?
Yeah, but this is the line of reasoning that we have to object, because that's what they bring forward.
Interesting you should say that, because right now, hold on a second, I am reading a book called Dismantling the Big Bang. Okay? And if you want to
Mhm.
read that, that is in the uppermost folder of the link that I sent you. It's called Dismantling the Big Bang.
You're sending it on Discord, Dart?
No, I sent you a direct message here on Clubhouse with a link. If you go to that,
Okay. I'll check it out after our conversation, okay?
yeah. And if you want to read that book, let me just see how far I am through this. I'm about, I would say, a quarter of the way through the book. It's very good. It's called Dismantling the Big Bang.
But you know where I am going with this? I think we need to meet atheists where they are. And we need to actually address what they are claiming. And what they are claiming is that there was that unified force at the Big Bang, which we don't have an explanation for, and they are simply fine with that.
Otangelo, I'm going even deeper than you are. I'm showing is they have no grounds for interpretability for anything. Okay? They have no grounds.
What does that mean, Dart?
Do you understand? Listen, do you accept in Hebrews 1 and in Colossians 1, I believe 17, it refers that Jesus upholds all things by the power of his will? Do you accept that?
Yes. Yes, of
Do
course.
you accept that?
Yes, of course.
Jesus is the creator and the sustainer, and he upholds all things by the power of his will. And
Right.
in him we move and have our being, Acts 17, right?
Well, we have an explanation for the force which was at the beginning, while atheists
And
don't. They just leave it as an open question. I mean, how many years have you heard? Well, we just don't know yet, and we are perfectly fine with it.
Oh, Tangelo, you're not listening to me. I'm not the one confused. Okay? I'm trying to explain to you that you are attempting by piecemeal to stymie them. Now, it's good as far as it gets, but it's not completely devastating. You need to devastate them. Okay? Now, since they reject that Jesus Christ upholds all things by the power of his will, then when they invoke unity among the diversity of things, which they will do when they open up their mouth, there is no ontological defensible basis for them to defend that the unity is real. And since they cannot defend that the unity is real, they forfeit their ability to speak intelligibly even about particles.